Okay, so now um, we renamed the form. Okay, we know we're working on the form. Now let's look at some of the properties. Okay, now we can change all these. All right, let's look at one easy one. Back color. That's exactly what it sounds like. Notice how right now it's gray and it says control. That gray is the standard color for a control. Okay, I can change that by if I click in here and click this. Look at this. There's a whole bunch of system colors. Okay, that's Windows system colors, by the way. I can do custom colors. I can also do web safe colors. Web safe colors, in case you don't know, those are colors that are guaranteed to show up correctly on people's computers on the web. They should show up on anybody's computer correctly. That's why they're called web safe. So I'm just going to pick one. I always go for this lime green. And just like that, it's that easy to change the background color. Okay. Now, I wouldn't, you could choose whatever color you want. I personally, wouldn't choose that for a real application, probably. But do what you want. It's your application. Let's see another one. Let's go down to size right here. Oh, by the way, if yours are not alphabetized, you see this AZ button? Click that and it will alphabetize them for you. It makes them easier to find. So size, right now it's 300 pixels by 300 pixels. 300 pixels wide by 300 pixels tall. Okay. In the current book and some of the exercises you do in the beginning, they actually have you plug numbers in here. If you just click in here, you can erase those or whatever and put in new numbers. I personally never do that because I can come over here to the form and grab these resize handles and do this. I can make it as big or small as I want. The corner handle, as you can see, does the width and height at the same time. This one does height. This one does width. Okay? Just like any other application where you have resize handles. Alright, next. Almost every control has a text property. Any control that displays text will have a text property. And that controls what text it displays. Right? If you look up here, the text displayed on a form is in the title bar. Form 1. Okay? Well, right here, I'm going to click in here. I'm going to get rid of this. And I'm going to call it whatever I want. Just like so. Now notice, I've got an exclamation. I've got that sharp symbol, that pound symbol, where I couldn't have it before. In a text property, you can put whatever you want. If it's on the keyboard, you can put it in there. It's not a problem. Okay? It's just a string, and a string can hold anything you can put on the keyboard and then some. We'll talk about strings later on in the course. Once you've typed in what you want, just press enter or click somewhere else. You got two options. You can either hit enter or click. Now there's the title bar. Okay? Another property we want to look at that's important with a form is the font. Right now, oh, by the way, you can expand this. If you can't see stuff, you could expand this by hovering over here and then clicking and dragging right on the edge. You can also go the other way too. Right now the font is Microsoft Sans Serif, which is usually going to be Arial. That's a sans serif font. 8.25 points is the size. I'm going to click in here. Notice this little button with the 3 dots comes up. Those 3 dots are called an ellipsis, by the way, just in case you wanted to know. If I click that button, the ellipsis actually indicates that another box, when I click that button, something else, another dialog box is going to come up. But anyway, so I click that button and a font dialog box pops up. Okay. I want to do Tahoma. So select Tahoma, leave it regular, leave it, or I want to make it 10. I'm gonna, oh, and the reason why I'm changing the font, by the way, is because Microsoft, their standard font from Windows is Tahoma. Okay, so they tell you that. I don't think they give you a specific size. I always select 10. Once you're done here, click OK. And there you go. Alright, this should be Tahoma. Alright, so that should be Tahoma. And if you look down here at the font now, it says Tahoma. It says 9.75 points. Even though I put 10, it rounds it down for some reason. Don't worry about that, though. Okay. Now the good thing about doing it here is anything that I put on here, any more controls I put on my form, will automatically be Tahoma and then the 9.75. They'll also have a background color of lime. Anything I put on here automatically inherits certain properties. And by the way, C# is an object-oriented programming language, an OOP language, and inheritance is a feature of object-oriented programming. Okay, now let's move this back in some, make some room. The next thing I want to do is I want to put in some new controls. For that, I'm going to go back up to this toolbar. Those 3 buttons, remember, they're important. And I'm going to click the toolbox. When I click the toolbox, you should see something similar to this. And right now, check out that thumbtack. Okay? If that thumbtack is in this position, and I click out here, the toolbox disappears. But if I go back over here and hover over it, it comes back. Okay? Just like so. If I want it to stay up, if I want it to stay, I click that thumbtack so it's pushed in, and then I have this. You can do whichever one you want. Depends upon how much screen space you have. And then once you've done that, look at this. These are all the controls that we can put up there, all kinds of things that we can put up there. By the way, most of these you won't use. Okay, some of these I've never used, and that's okay. If you don't need it, why worry about it? Same thing for these properties. There's a lot of these properties you'll never use, and that's fine. You can play around with them. It won't hurt anything. The worst thing you'll do is make it so you have to restart your project. I mean, that's the worst that's going to happen. You're not going to damage anything. So feel free to play around in this. Now, I'm going to add some text to my form here, and I can't just type it out in here. Anything I want to put on here, I've always got to have a container for it. To put text, I want to have just text by itself. I need a label as the container. So look in this list under Common Controls, go to Label. Then what you want to do is click and hold and drag. So you're doing a drag, not taking a drag, you're doing a drag, over here, and then hover around approximately where you want it, and then drop it. And there you go. That's what your label looks like at first. Now the book will tell you to double click over here in order to add this to your form. Don't do that though. Do what I just told you, which is to click, or to drag it over. If you double click, it's going to cause problems later on, I promise you. So just avoid that. Alright, so that's my label. Now the first thing I want to do when I put a control on, and if you forget to do this first, it's no big deal, but I always tell people first thing you do is go up to the name again. So see, these properties are for the label now, and my label is the one that's active. If you look over here, you see the dots and that little resize handle. The prefix for a label is LBL. And then for the rest of the name, I normally name labels after what text they display. I usually put the entire text. Okay. For this one, I'm just going to put welcome, because I know that's part of the text I'm going to put in that label. Okay. Again, it would be mixed class if I'm going to mixed case. If I were to put more words, use mixed case. And remember, form is the only one that starts with a capital letter. Capital FRM. For everything else, it's lowercase. I don't know why Microsoft decided to do that, but that's their convention. Okay, and then you can either click enter or click somewhere to make this take hold. If you look up here, it still says that to make it update itself. I just do that. So now it says LBO welcome to indicate I'm working on the label. If I come up here and I click on FRM welcome, now I'm working on the form, and notice that the focus changed to the form, meaning it's active now. It has the resize handles and the dotted line. If I click over here on the label, that's another way to make something active. Single click it, single click, that's important. Okay, now back to the label. Okay, now if we look through some of these properties, there will be some properties in common between controls. This one has a background color. Notice it's lime. Remember I told you it's going to inherit automatically. I could change this if I wanted to. If I want the label to have a different color, I could change that. Border style is going to be important later. In here, it's always going to be, when we do a border style, it's going to be fixed 3D. But I'm not going to do that right now. Notice font is Tahoma 9.75. Okay, I'm going to change that in just 1 second. The first thing I want to change though is the text. Right now it says label 1. Okay, remember text property. Alright, so click in there, get rid of that, and then I'm going to type my message. Welcome to CIS 115. Oops. And remember, it can be whatever you want. And if you click enter, hit enter, notice now it says welcome to CIS 115 up here. Awesome. Okay. And I'm going to move this over a little bit. As a matter of fact, well, alright, that looks pretty centered, right? Okay. And it may be, but if I want to make sure that it's centered, see all these buttons up here? These are some handy alignment buttons that will become available, during your project, but these aren't available right now. Most of these aren't. But two that are these, center horizontally and center vertically. So if I want to make sure I've got it centered horizontally, I click that, and I almost had it. If you notice, it just moved over just a little bit. Okay. I could also do center vertically, which will center it with respect to these. See where these green edges are? So to that part of my form, it's centered with respect to this and this, and centered horizontally with respect to this edge and this edge. Okay? Now I don't want it down here. I do want it centered horizontally, but I could click, see that four-headed arrow? That indicates I could click and then drag it up. But I could also use, and sometimes it's easier to do this, use your cursor keys. Right now I'm using the up cursor, the up arrow key. The up arrow key. I could also use the left and right and down, but sometimes that method makes it easier to align things, which you'll see later on as you go through the course. Okay, you don't have to, don't be overwhelmed by all this information right now. These are things you'll pick up on as you go.